is new information. The FBI has uncovered evidence that points right to North Korea. Fox News Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us. Nice to see you, Catherine. What's the FBI saying?
Well, thank you, Greta. The language in this FBI statement is carefully crafted, and while reporting there is enough to blame North Korea, it stops short of saying they executed the attacks and provides only 3 pieces of evidence to make the case. The technical analysis of the deleted data shows links to malware North Korea has used in the past. There is significant overlap between several IP or Internet protocol addresses and North Korean entities. And the Sony hack bears striking similarities to an attack last year against South Korean banks that left many customers unable to withdraw money from ATMs. The FBI statement reads in part, quote, North Korea's actions were intended to inflict significant harm on a U.S. business and suppress the right of American citizens to express themselves. And today the president went further, stating publicly what intelligence officials have maintained privately, that the Sony incident shows the U.S. must make it a priority to develop rules and standards for cyber warfare, because being on the defensive is a losing strategy. And tonight, an intelligence source questions why North Korea would spend so much of its political capital on a movie, and insisted China had some kind of enabling role, though the president denied today that there was any outside involvement. Greta.
Okay, well, I thought the FBI statement in part was weird. For instance, it says Sony's been a great partner in the investigation, as though it was standing up at the Oscars and thanking everybody who voted for him. I thought that was weird. It said they're a great partner. Does the administration think that this is an act of war or not? I realize that nobody died, but this is an attack on a financial institution, and it could be the beginning of something more.
Based on putting the FBI out front, I would agree with Colonel North that they are approaching it as a criminal act. The issue, though, and you raise a good point, is whether it does constitute cyber warfare. People in the intelligence community don't like to say active war, but cyber warfare. And in this particular case, what happened at Sony was so destructive, it was like dropping a bomb on that corporation.
All right, you said, and you were quoted saying that talk about we don't want to be on the defensive. Well, it strikes me as a little bit odd, because we have known about this risk for a very long time. We've had Mike Rogers, chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and ranking member on a Dutch Rupersberger.
And the head of the NSA.
And they've been talking about this for a long time, and all of a sudden, suddenly, the administration wakes up and says, oh my God, this could be an attack, a cyber attack.
Look, the seminal events in terms of cyber warfare happened at least 3 years ago. Stuxnet on Iran's nuclear facility that destroyed the centrifuges, then the attack on the Saudi national oil company, Aramco, and 30,000 computers were effectively disabled, and then the attack last year on the South Korean banks. This is a pattern which has now come to the public consciousness. This is not something that's been a surprise to those who follow it.
Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Secretary of State John Kerry issuing a statement condemning North Korea's cyber attack. Secretary Kerry saying in part, threats in cyberspace pose one of the greatest national security challenges to the United States, and North Korea's actions intended to inflict significant economic damage and suppress free speech are well beyond the bounds of acceptable state behavior in cyberspace. And our next guest is a former military assistant to Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, who's also lead consultant on cybersecurity for IBM. Steve Bucci joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
I don't mean to be hung up on this whole idea of whether this is an act of war or not, but now we've got the Secretary of State saying that this is, this is a national security matter. I mean, that sounds a little bit more than just an armed robbery down the street, a criminal matter.
Well, I have to tell you, the hack itself, I don't think is an act of war. It was cyber espionage. They stole stuff, but instead of using it for monetary gain, they used it for political influence. However, when they turned it to the physical threats that caused Sony and all the movie theaters to fold up like a cheap suit, that was terrorism. That fits the definition under our laws of an act of terrorism and should be addressed that way.
Well, I guess, think of a criminal act, you think, we have a trial, we lock somebody up, if the person, but if this is state action, doesn't that put it in a whole different category if we've got North Korea trying to inflict some sort of cyber attack on us or inflict real damage?
As I say, the real damage is in the loss of the freedom of speech, freedom of expression that came out. Just stealing the data from Sony, not so much. Industrial espionage happens all the time. Sony, and to disagree with Colonel North, blaming the victim, Sony really screwed this one up. They were woefully and inadequately prepared for this.
Sony claims that they ran it past the State Department, got the blessing some time ago. And apparently, it's like this movie wasn't a problem, and go figure. I don't understand this. I've been to North Korea 3 times, and this was a very predictable response, I think, on behalf of North Korea. And and this is the same State Department that was scandalized when there was an anti-Muslim video in Benghazi that they said at first led to the deaths of 4 Americans. So on the one hand, they're scandalized at the anti-Muslim video. On the other hand, they're giving the blessing to a video that is assassinating the leader of a very unstable nation.
I didn't say they were smart about that aspect either. I was referring to their technical preparation for this. They were like walking naked through the briar patch from a cybersecurity standpoint. They really, really blew this, realizing they're not Sony, the parent headquarters, they're the movie company. They're still associated with one of the biggest tech companies in the world. To be this unprepared and this ridiculously immature about it, they almost deserve what they got.
Is Sony a Japanese company or an American company?
The parent company's Japanese.
Because I don't think you can ignore that because of the relationship between Japan and North Korea. They are mortal enemies, and I don't think anyone's been discussing that. I mean, I don't think North Korea hates Japan more than it hates us.
I think you're right. And initially, when the hack occurred, there was a lot of speculation. Was this done just to sting the Japanese, not the United States? I'm not sure if that's the case. I think it's funny, though, in this particular movie, from what we see in the trailers, they make as much fun of America and our inabilities as they do the North Koreans.
And I know that I was told my ear it's on the New York Stock Exchange and Sony, and that's not the point. I'm looking at the historic reference, the fact that Japan is. I realize it's on the New York Stock Exchange, but look, of course, North Korea's reaction is bizarre. And of course, they make fun of us more in the movie. But I mean, it's like Sony sort of walked into this one, with bad judgment.
I agree. It was a ham-handed satire. It's kind of who they play to. But in this case, they didn't realize they were going to get some response from a nation state.
They could have made up a country. They could have made up a country. They could have had the same movie and just changed the name of the country. That's whatever. Anyway, Steve, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Greta.
And today.